Recording state. So recording is on. Well, hello everybody. I see the participants are logging in and it's great to see everybody today. And I'm so happy to have the University of Michigan School of Medicine with us today. We were just before we opened this up talking about how important it is for us to have these conversations, for you to see as students that this is a very real human process on both sides, and that it's important, I think, for us to have the opportunity. And maybe one silver lining is, I don't know if we would have had the opportunity to have Carol Tiener and all of our wonderful Terps who are at the School of Michigan or the University of Michigan, but now we do, and I think that that's kind of a nice opportunity for us. We're going to have a conversation about Michigan, but also about medical school admissions in general, about the Casper exam that the University of Michigan does use. So there's just, keep the chat active, ask your questions in the chat. We're going to take an opportunity to introduce the University of Michigan's friends that we have here today. I'm going to start with Carol Tiener, and I have to tell the Carol Tiener story. Which is that Carol and I have known each other for 25 years, a really, really long time. And what happened was kind of a funny story. We worked together right when I was first out of college. I worked for a year on Capitol Hill, and Carol worked there too. And we knew each other for a year in a completely different life. And then life goes on and we moved into these other positions. And one day I got an invitation to visit the University of Maryland School of Medicine.
Michigan, University of Michigan Medical School. That's where you got invited. Okay. And what did you do with the invitation?
Thank you. Next week. Yes.
Tell them what you did with the invitation.
So I promptly dropped it in the trash.
Because she's so busy.
And then a friend of mine in the same position I have at Hopkins wrote me and said, "Hey, Wendy, are you going to Michigan? Did you get that invitation?" And I was like, went into the trash and found it. And it was signed Carol Tiener. And I was like, gosh, Carol Tiener, how many can there be? So I wrote and I said, this is such a long shot, but I knew Carol Tiener many years ago. And I know she was from Michigan, and is there any chance that it's you? And then she was like, Wendy! And so we've been back in touch ever since, and it's been really neat that we have this opportunity to work together in this brand new space. And
yeah,
so, it's exciting.
You all have a wonderful advisor. Take advantage of your wonderful advisor, okay?
Thank you. So with that story, and with me having already mashed up the University of Michigan School of Medicine name many times, Carol, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Carol Tiener, the Director of Admissions. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm really pleased to be here in Ann Arbor talking to you wherever you may be. And gosh, should we start with the youngest med students we have with us and go to the I'll say by year, your youngest to oldest. Go ahead, y'all.
Okay, so that might be Zoe.
Come on, right. Zoe. Is she frozen?
She looks a little frozen. So maybe she'll come back in. So then I think maybe Marquise and Manka are the next youngest. You want to go ahead, Marquise?
Yeah, I can go. Hi, I'm Marquis. I am a second-year medical student. Graduated from UMD in 2017, biochemistry, took a gap year, and I'm super excited to be here to answer your questions and just show face and put people to the name of this great medical school.
And I'm Manka. I'm also an M2 with Marquis. Graduated in 2017 from Maryland as well. I took a gap year after graduation, and just like Marquis, I'm excited to encourage people to think about Michigan this cycle or future cycles.
Should we go backwards and grab Zoe now that she's back with us?
Sorry, my connection cut out right as it was my time. Hi, everyone. I'm Zoe. I graduated from Maryland in 2017 and took 2 years off. So I'm currently in M1 in Michigan and excited to share about how I love both Block M's.
Nice.
Young.
Everyone, I'm DeYoung. So Carol made me feel really old, but really I'm class of 2017 as well. So I'm this like weird period between my third and fourth year, but excited to talk to you guys about how like transition over the 4 years. And
Can't you call yourself a fourth year now?
I think I'm a fourth year, but that means there's no third year class. So I'm M3/M4.
That's right. Our fours just graduated. So Wendy, did you have some announcements before we get started?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do a little bit of housekeeping stuff and then I'm gonna hide and let you guys take over. So the first, like one thing that really works well in this kind of a setting is if you stay muted. You're welcome to uncover your video if you want to, that's up to you, but stay muted because the more people who are unmuted, the harder it is for people to hear. And so go ahead and ask questions as they come to you in the chat. Hopefully you've been on Zooms before and you know the chat feature, and just chat, open it up to everyone, or if you have, in particular, if you want to say something to Marquis or something like that, you can do a private chat. But, hopefully most of your questions, people will be interested in hearing. And so you'll just ask them to everyone and then the students will be on there answering. The students are going to type their contact information and Carol has already done so in the chat so that if you want to follow up with them at any point, you're certainly welcome to. And I have some of our University of Maryland staff on here too. So if you have specific questions about anything that's happening right now with the committee process that you want to direct to us, we're going to be active in the chat too, answering them. And I'm just going to make one announcement, which I'm also going to send out on Elms later today. But I want to address the issue of transcripts because it came to my attention. I have a way of looking at all of the students who have opened up an AMCAS application in an advisor portal. So I see all your names. There's close to 120 some odd students who have already submitted AMCAS from the University of Maryland. And I was looking at it and I noticed on Monday that all of you are still on hold for transcripts. And I thought that that was very unusual, that every single one of you would still be on hold for transcripts. So I got on the phone with AMCAS and with our registrar's office, and we were able to discover that the system that we put in place so that they wouldn't have to put paper transcripts into the mail, because that is really slow right now on everybody's end, did have a little bit of a log jam. I don't want you to be anxious about it because we figured it out. We know who all of you are. We have a solution, but it was because the fax number that we were using, just as, I'm just going to be very, transparent about this. The fax number was getting overwhelmed. And so there became a queue that we need to sort through, but we're aware of it now. We're working on it. And another possible silver lining is that now that we've identified it, AMCAS feels terrible and is going to be working really hard to expedite the students who've already got their transcripts in. So I'm going to send an announcement on Elms for people to fully understand what's going on, but we are on it. There has been some miscommunication. There are some things I'm going to sort out in the Elms announcement later to help people understand. AMCAS was doing a little bit of confusing messaging about, is it PO box? Is there a street address that you want to use? It is the PO box that you need to use. It also doesn't really matter because these are being transmitted electronically and not by mail, but just because the messaging has been inconsistent, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to address all of that later today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this now over to Carol, and we'll hear from the University of Michigan. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Wendy. And I want to be sure that you heard me say that you need to use your excellent pre-med advisors at Maryland. Wendy and her team, they know what they're doing. They have their pulse nationally on what's happening, their pulse with AMCAS and the AAMC, and they have a wealth of knowledge. And I just really beg you to, if they advise you in a certain way or strongly suggest, I would definitely have bells going off in your head that, okay, then I should be listening because they do have this wealth of knowledge. My primary goal today is to talk about the admissions process, and not as much as Michigan per se, but I do want you to use the chat, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. I hope to just talk for about 20 minutes myself, and then have you talk to our med students about medical school, about the process, about, anything you want, okay? So we don't filter anything. We're very transparent at Michigan. So this is your golden opportunity to do that. Some main things that I like to focus on with pre-meds is for you to realize, take a deep breath, and focus on what you can control. There are so many things in this world that you cannot control. And you just try as best you can to focus your energies on what you can control. Some of that is this your year to apply? The pandemic and everything going on in our nation might be affecting that for you. And that's just something that you can't control, but you can control if this is the year for you to apply. We will be looking at applications without MCAT scores, say. We're looking at changing our system to not have verified applications, meaning we don't have to wait to have applications with those transcripts approved. We'll start reading. So you don't know what's happening on the back end of things, but you can control when you do apply. And I would just have you take maybe a step back to think, is this my year with maybe I don't have my MCAT score yet, but do I have this fully fleshed out, wonderful body of work that I've been working on for the past 4 years or my life on things that I'm passionate about? And do I have enough to show a medical school admissions committee that I am invested in X or Y or Z, and my letters of recommendation really do back that up, that I have years of body of work in these areas, whether it be in my community with service, or whether it be in research, or whether it be in a certain business realm, or in engineering, or whatever it is for you. You do have to have years of work. It isn't just what you've been doing this past year or during the pandemic. So please reflect on, like, the AAMC has really nice websites. And I just heard a webinar that I was really impressed about that we'll be tweeting once I get the link that doesn't require a passcode to see it, a webinar about competencies and how you fulfill these competencies of altruism and dependability and resiliency and professionalism and communication and all these wonderful competencies that we're trying to look for you as a whole candidate, not just the MCAT score, or not just whether you've got a C in a class in the sciences and do you know the science work, okay? So reflect for yourself and with your pre-med advisors how you fulfill those competencies, how you can reflect on those in your experiences and in your essays. We put out our secondary essays on our website. we added a couple more. Yeah, you get to do a couple more essays for Michigan. They don't have to be really long essays, okay? We want you to be succinct, but we wanted you to have more of an opportunity to tell us about yourself rather than just the AMCAS application. Everyone will get a secondary from Michigan. If that is if ours is a school that seems like a good fit for you, and you've done your research about our school, then certainly apply to Michigan. If you don't meet the standards, we do not charge a secondary fee if you have FAP, but you can also reach out to me if you're having extenuating circumstances where you're being stretched financially. Just email me and tell me your circumstances and I will waive your secondary fee, okay? We're trying to be extremely flexible in this time. I actually always have done that any year, but I'm just wanting it to be known to you out there that you can reach out to schools and ask them. You will not be flying to our campus to interview if you get an interview. We'll be doing virtual interviews. So do your research about how the school is interviewing. We have long form, we call them traditional style interviews, where you would be in a Zoom room with one other person, whether it be a faculty member, an alum, or a med student, and they'll have a conversation with you about your application. They don't see your grades and scores. They just see your essays and your experiences and how you reflect on your body of work and what you're passionate about. And I love that. This really nice conversations can occur when you're kind of pushing aside more of the metrics, or maybe being swayed by a perfect this or a perfect that, right? Or a not so perfect this or a not so perfect that, right? We want to get to know you as a person. We also have 6, we're going to do 5 this year, but 5 mini stations, which are kind of like MMIs, where you're in a room doing a teamwork task, a Zoom room, or you are experiencing a role play where you've read a scenario and you're going into the Zoom room and you are interacting with an actor who is part of that scenario. And you have to think through a bit about maybe a little bit of a sticky situation, or ask our med students in the chat, what was your experience like in those role plays, you know, and they'll answer you. I think the more you're out in the world, the more that you push yourself to be around people who aren't like you, the more you push yourself to be in a bit of an uncomfortable situation, trying to navigate something with another person. The more you are doing that in real life, the more that will help you on the short form interviews, the little mini interviews, okay? I don't know if you know this or not, but the AAMC through AMCAS is experimenting next year with video interview questions. I might be ahead of the game on this one. They might be just putting this out in June 15th. So you get the inside scoop. But we have talked with them. We want to be a part of this, I won't call it a trial because we're going to use them, but it is a trial for this year in terms of how effective it is. But the AAMC will be through AMCAS. If you get an interview offer, you would be fulfilling this video interview questions. There'll be 6 questions, and you would record them in your own home with your device, and hopefully if libraries open. I don't know if libraries are open in Maryland yet, but they're going to be open soon in Michigan. So you're doing those video interviews, and that will be part of your package for Michigan. You also need to do Casper for Michigan, and they will also waive fees for FAP students. And if you don't know what FAP is, it's Fee Assistant Program, maybe. Actually, the advisors would know better than me. But it will waive the fee for that. So you pay $12 to do the Casper. It's a situational judgment test. Did my med students do the Casper? Yes? No? No. They're like, no, we didn't do it. Zoe did it, I think. No? Anyway, what we're doing with Casper is it's a company out of Canada that with these situational judgment tests online in again, your own home or with your device, you are recording your answers. You're typing out some answers to some, again, kind of ethical dilemma situations. It's trying to look at professionalism, communication, ethical decision making. They have seen in Canada that these results do correlate with scores and exams of residents in Canada. So meaning people in residency programs, physicians, and how they are graded or scored in those realms. So we were willing to try it. We do not use it as part of our admissions decision right now. We have not gained enough data with the way our med students are looked at with professionalism and communication to see that there's a strong enough correlation. So we're doing it for a couple more years of gathering data, and then we will see if we keep Casper or not. But you still need to have it to have a complete application, okay? So I would also advise you to use reputable sources. Again, your pre-med advisors are that, the AAMC, their resources. I wouldn't go the Reddit route or the studentdoctor.net route, honestly, because we don't go on those sites. My staff will look at the sites, but and it helps me to kind of answer some questions perhaps, but really you don't know who those people are, you know, who are saying things. So that's that. And I started out, I believe, saying that we will strive to be as fair and flexible as possible. We'll holistically review files without MCATs, but we do need the MCAT eventually. Also, what's really important about Michigan is it doesn't matter when you interview at Michigan. So if you come in September or February, anywhere in between, you are evaluated equally. We carefully designate how many interview spots we have in a cycle in order to yield a class of 170, okay? So we carefully calculate that out. We want roughly half out-of-state candidates, roughly half in-state candidates, and so we'll adjust the interview offers based on these metrics of how many people choose Michigan from out of state, how many people choose Michigan who are in state once they have an interview offer. So we roll out the notifications of you are admitted in October, November, December, January, February. But just because we roll out the notifications doesn't mean that there's fewer spots for those who interview in February, okay? We don't interview for a wait list. So I think that's an important point for you all to understand and to not feel dismayed that like because you interview in January, February, you have less of a chance of getting in, all right? So Michigan carefully calculates that out, all right? We also at Michigan are extremely flexible with your letters of recommendation, the competencies, the you know, the type of coursework you have, your letters of recommendation. We want you to major in what you love. We want you to find people to write your letters who know you very well and will write about yourself as a person, not just that you got an A in this course and you're super smart, okay? So we want you to pick people who know you well. We don't have any restrictions about letters. We want 3 letters at the minimum, and 6 at the most is pretty much the number that could cover, you know, who you are. And so we don't require a semester of a biology lab or a semester of this or that. We're saying be competent in biology and physics and chemistry and all those other wonderful, rich things. So in a sense, that leads me to tell you what Michigan is looking for, right? Because if we're looking so broad across the country and we're looking so broad about not having specific types of things to look for, I'm really looking for how you reflected yourself on the application. Can I get a sense of you as a person? How do you work in teams? How do others talk about you and your leadership style? What are you passionate about? And how does that intersect with medicine? And why is the MD the path for you? I get really excited about people doing very different things, but you still have to be grounded in the clinical work with patients. Not just, our dean isn't not as enamored with shadowing and scribing, because those are very passive. They don't engage you with people as much unless you have a very unique situation, which then you'd want to explain. So it has to be grounded in clinical work. We need to know why medicine, but we have so many things at Michigan that could help propel your career. We are a large public university. Michigan as a whole is part of the Big Ten, as you know, and we have many professional schools on our campus where you can intersect with business and engineering and public policy and public health and law. And you don't have to do a dual degree. You could choose it as an M3 to do that as another degree for a year and step away and get your master's of public health or something like that. But you could also take advantage of those professors and those students on our campus, just being a medical student. You might do research while you're at Michigan. You might not. You need to do a capstone project while you're at Michigan, something that is either in the humanities realm or in research or engineering, like all those different realms. You can follow your path at Michigan. So when I'm reading an application, I want to see, wow, how would this student take advantage of what we have at Michigan and really take off in their career? And I'll look to see when I go to our students after I talk in about 3 minutes, how are they using what's at Michigan? Why did they pick Michigan? What's the intersection for them of, why move out to the Midwest and leave the East Coast, right? I think it might be interesting too. I don't know if you all can go back to your application cycle. Does it seem like so far away, you med students, when you're thinking about, wow, because the flood of information that med students get and absorb and then have to leave and then move on is a lot. It is, to me, when I look at our med students, and I miss them so much by not seeing them on campus, is because I see them connecting with community. You need to, as an applicant, try your best in this time of virtual interviews to see what the community is like on a campus, right? So your challenge is and my challenge as a director is to how am I going to have you meet my community of people and have you see if you connect with that community, because your fellow, your common students and your older students are going to help you along this path. So you need to figure out who are my people and who's going to help me get through this, a really tough and invigorating and up and down time, right? Who's going to help me through the ups and downs? Each school you go to, as much as you can, try to absorb the community vibe, even though it's over a Zoom or, through their websites. You would want to reach out to people like you're on this call right now, or you're viewing it through a video, and think about what resonated with you and take notes on these schools. I say this on our interview day to have, I'm like a mom. I'm like, write your notes about how you felt, what was your gut telling you about that day, and spend as much time as you can with the school you're interviewing at to absorb that and be fully present with that school, because we can get very carried away with a lot of things going on. So that would be my kind of mom advice, is just to start building now your notes and your portfolio. Even if you're a freshman, to say, this is the date I saw this presentation, these are the couple of takeaways I took from that school. And then if you build your portfolio, I think that'll help you even more so as we go through kind of virtual interviewing. All right, I'm gonna stop talking. I could talk for another whole half hour about Michigan and stuff on campus, but I really want you to talk with our students because they are gems, and I'm so happy they could be with us. So is anything going on in the chat, people? Do you want to talk? I'm going to go, Do Young, you're my eldest because you're the M4. I love the way you put M4 by your name. What's going on in the chat? What are you thinking? What advice? What do you want to say? And then we'll go to the M3s, and Zoe's last.
Yeah, I'll just give general advice. I also want to make sure that some people don't get lost in the chat. So all the way up there, I just want to first start with Radhika. She said, what are examples of role plays given during interviews? And is it a clinical scenario? I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about that or like anyone else.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, we don't do, well, we're more like life scenarios. Some of them might be kind of set in a clinical context, but you don't have to know, you don't have to have medical knowledge to do these role plays. I think if you go online, you'll find different examples that will help you out. I don't put examples on our website. We rotate through several types of role plays, but you don't have to have medical knowledge.
Did you want to go through the questions, or did you want like all of us to talk?
What do you think? Have you guys kind of answered them or no?
There are a few more specific ones.
Ideal timeline for a Casper test there is no ideal timeline. I would say, even sometimes we've even given an offer of an interview and said, we don't see you've done the Casper yet. Would you do that before you interview? So I think you're just needing to do that in your good time when you can do it. And I would say don't pay for any prep on Casper, okay? Don't pay for any prep things. Please don't pay people to help you through that. Just go to Casper's websites, do some of their practice stuff, live your life, be out in the world, and be a good human, okay? And just be thinking that way instead of how am I supposed to answer on this Casper test?
I was wondering if maybe, I'm starting to type the questions that I feel like maybe haven't been addressed in the chat. So maybe if you guys want to just go through and introduce yourselves and maybe give like Carol was suggesting, maybe like give your tips, give your experience as an applicant, and then if we don't cover some of these specific questions, then in the Q&A, which we're getting toward, then I'll make sure that we don't lose them. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, cool.
So do you want to go, Do Young, with your tips? Anything that comes to mind, or why Michigan?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Maryland, so I think it was it was a simple decision for me because I felt like I needed to grow elsewhere and grow at an institution outside of Maryland. So Michigan was actually my first interview, and I guess like taking a step back, like because I knew I was applying straight through, my years were a bit more crunched, and I had to do a lot more prepping up and going into that. I don't think like my scores themselves were like very stellar, but I was like very grateful that, and I still do believe that Michigan, of like the medical institutions I've been to, looks at an application holistically and really cares that you care and have a passion that you can talk about and bring to the school. And when I was here for interview day, I really felt like they cared about me as a human being, and that they cared about my interests and wanted to help me be the best version of myself that I wanted to be. I think what drew me to Michigan at the end of the day is their clinical prowess. I don't think you guys will think about this for many years on end, but Michigan is constantly top 5 for residency programs because they get their students so involved during the the years here that they are essentially an intern by the time they're a third or fourth year student. Like I feel very comfortable. Like if you told me to graduate tomorrow, that I could like be an intern, which is like pretty incredible, honestly, just because like we don't have the traditional program in the 2-year preclinical and 2-year clinical. We crunch everything into the 1-year preclinical, which is a beast in itself, but that extra year of clinical experience just makes a world of difference and gives you the comfort to really feel like you can provide the best care for your patients possible. Yeah, and I guess like I want to keep it brief, but I want you to like stay true to who you are. I feel like Michigan loves you for you if they accept you, and that going into med school is a crazy journey, but it's easy to lose sight of who you are, but to maintain who you are and why you came to medical school is important for resilience down the road. So, yeah.
Great. Anka, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I grew up in Hyattsville, Maryland. My family is originally from Cameroon, and that's where I was born. My why Michigan story is kind of a very random story. When I was applying, I applied throughout 2017, which was the year I graduated. I didn't really know much about Michigan. You kind of hear about some of the people who have graduated from Michigan. That's kind of as much as I knew about the medical school. However, ironically, I knew Du Young, who graduated the same year as me, started at Michigan in 2017. And I had 2 other people I knew at Michigan. And throughout my application cycle, they just like seemed to be having such a blast at Michigan. And so when I was applying, I was like, okay, let me do a little bit more research into the school. And I felt that the things that Michigan was interested in kind of matched up with things that I was interested in. And I know when you're applying, you have to submit, and I'm blanking, for your committee letter, you have to submit that kind of form. And one of my suggestions from Wendy was like, you should apply to Michigan. And I was like, okay, the stars are all aligning. Let's do this. And so I submitted my application. And then on my interview day, kind of echoing what Du Young said, I just felt like, first of all, like just the environment was very welcoming from the beginning. You'll kind of get a sense as you go through the application cycle about the culture at like an institution, really from the moment you step into the door, kind of like how people welcome you, how the interviewees interact with each other, how like the team interacts with you. And I just felt like from the minute I got to my interview day and kind of when I left throughout my interviews, the MMIs, I just had a really good feeling that I couldn't describe. And it just kind of felt comfortable to be at Michigan. And so I think the idea that the school cares about you as a person, but also wants to advance kind of your personal interest was something that was near and dear to my heart, and something that I see continues to be true here. Still trying to figure out the ways to kind of maximize all the resources that we have available to us here. But I think kind of my why Michigan is just that this idea of being the best version of myself that I could be, and feeling that Michigan would be a place that would give me those resources to kind of maximize my potential in medicine. So.
Thank you. Marquis.
Hi, I'm Marquis. I echo what both of Manka and Du Young said. I'm trying to think of some other tip that I can give. I would say something that I thought was helpful to think about once you actually start applying in the process is that you submit, your primary, and cast thing all at once, and it feels like a sigh of relief, but secondaries kind of start rolling in. And that's also when you start to have other things kind of going on in life. So I would really suggest for people I established like 3 people that I told them I would be sending them my essays and things, and just so they know that they're gonna need to at random times be like helpful for me, because your first secondary, you're super stressed out about, you're nervous, it takes you forever, and then you finally submit it, but then there's another one and there's another one. So I think just really being intentional with each one that comes and thinking about how you can continue to build your own personal narrative. And I think that's what Carol's saying about being yourself and really telling your story and why the MD path is the one for you. The more you're honest with yourself and it's really coming from a place of your own experience, not what you saw someone else do and what you think, you know, Carol wants to hear, it's going to be really hard to find the words to say those things and to consistently say it and to say it with ease and to not take forever trying to perfect something that isn't you. So I would definitely echo, be you in your essays, but then have someone that can kind of read it, because it's really helpful to have someone say, yes, I did read that. And if I didn't know you, I would align this to who you are. And you can't necessarily do that as an individual. You might need an outside opinion of that. And it's just helpful to start out even early on, like knowing that it's going to be, because secondaries come out pretty much until something like January, I think. So really just having those people that know, like, I'm going to, you know, hit you up, and if you could return that within a good time, that'd be helpful. I think that's some practical advice I can give. In terms of why Michigan, my answer is always 100% just the community and the people. I'm from Chester, Maryland, on the Eastern Shore. Went to Ken Island High School, went to University of Maryland. So like I had never really left Maryland. I did a year off and I lived in DC, so still did DMV. And when I was actually deciding between medical schools, I was deciding between Ann Arbor and LA. And both are good school, like the schools I was deciding from, for both good schools, good programs. But I think the thing that no one told me, and that I kind of really quickly got a pulse of, is you're going to be a doctor anywhere. If you get into an MD program, once you're there, you're going to be a doctor. But the type of program you choose, the people that are at that program, the support you have, the opportunities, the research, the advisors, the, you know, location is a part of it, but those are the things that really, really matter, and are really gonna help you make it through some tough years and help you become the person that's gonna then, you know, turn back and want to bring others up. And that was really important to me, and that is just really what I saw Michigan doing. They were about their students, they wanted to hear from their students, the students knew that, and they felt empowered, and that's the way that I want to, I don't know, I guess that's the environment that I want to become a doctor in. So that's really my main why Michigan, and I'm continually happy with my choice, so that's great.
Thank you for that. I was thinking too, I often do say to people, just stay in your lane. Just stay in your lane. Just put your blinders on to all the other pre-med stuff going on. And people, I am not a physician. I have not been a pre-med. I have encountered many, many pre-meds, and they all tell me everybody's given all this advice and you should do that. You should do this. You should do that. You should do that. Just stay in your lane, do what you're passionate about, and, you know, have faith in that, what you can control. Yeah. And also I like that Marquis said to have someone read your essay who doesn't know you. I think if you just hand it to someone who you kind of know, but they don't really know you, and ask them, what was your impression after reading that? What's your impression of me as a person, right? You might get some insights. Okay, Zoe.
Hi. I mean, I think that all the older students, well, not older, but further along students, really summed up, like put some really good thoughts out there, and I echo everything that they said. I'll just say that all of you on this call are, you know, miles ahead of where I was when I was an undergrad. I love that Carol said, you know, just be yourself and be a good person, because that's pretty much like all I did in undergrad. I wasn't very good at, like, you know, checking the boxes, or kind of even like seeking out Wendy or advice about medical school when I was an undergrad. I was like very involved in sports and very involved in teaching and a couple things. And I felt that Michigan is truly a place, like Carol's not just saying that, it is a place where they don't necessarily care about checking all the boxes. Like, they want to see that you are a good person, that you're true to yourself, that you follow your passions, and, you know, that's okay if that looks different for different applicants. So I guess hoping, just, you know, talking to a group of pre-meds to kind of dampen some worries, I guess. I remember feeling stressed and feeling like my application wasn't, you know, what was expected or what was what medical schools were looking for. And I can't speak to other medical schools. This is the only one I've been to, and I'm very happy about that. But Michigan really is a place where you know, you can be yourself and be proud of that on paper, and they're going to give that a fair chance. And then so yeah, so I guess my why Michigan, I played lacrosse at Maryland, so I'm a big team person, love team sports. I love the atmosphere at Michigan. Like I think it's unique in that I really feel like a part of not just the Michigan medicine family, but also the University of Michigan family, which is really important. It is important to me and something I really value. Like as simple as the proximity of the medical campus to the undergrad campus, like Ann Arbor is such a cool town and a place where just Michigan rules, which is awesome. Cause like I'm sure you guys know, the Maryland medical school is in a completely different city. You know, it's not in College Park. And so that's something just to consider. For different people, again, will be better or worse. But for me, something that I love about Michigan, I think that everyone speaks about their interview day at Michigan, which I also feel was a huge factor in me deciding to come here, which speaks to the University of Michigan. I left some interviews kind of, you know, feeling overwhelmed or fearful, or just, you know, we don't have to get into the details, but I had a lot of different feelings leaving med school interviews. And the Michigan interview is one that I left just feeling at home and feeling welcomed and feeling like I really did get a view into what life would be like here. And I trust that Carol's going to find a way to give that to all of the applicants virtually. And that is something that's really important because, you know, I think someone gave me the advice was like, med school is too long and too hard to do with people that you hate. And I feel that when I stepped foot on Michigan, I could see myself with these people doing something that I'm very passionate about and that is going to be challenging and is going to push you, but surrounded by people who I want to do this journey with. And I think that was a very important part of why I chose Michigan and why I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. I saw something about research in the chat. Any of you four doing research during your time at Michigan? Raise your hand so I can see. Yeah. Marquis, do you want to, or do you want to speak to that just a little bit? Because they can do research. I mean, some people even get started the summer before. There's a little like impact accelerator, we call it, and it's like $500 to like get started, and you don't even have to be on campus. And so some people kind of get little things going during the 4 years. Some people wait a while, some people wait. So Michigan's curriculum, I should tell you a little bit about Michigan's curriculum, but basically they're doing an intense science 12 months of solidifying kind of the science knowledge. We call it the science trunk. And then they move into the second year is your clinical rotations, the clinical trunk. And then the last 2 years we call them the branches. And there's a lot of flexibility for what you want to do in the branches and the elective time. And certainly there's things required. You have to have the impact project. You have to have, and you want to have clinical, the residency prep courses get you ready for your residency in the spring of your 4th year. You have sub-Is, which are like you're acting like an intern in your specialty, things like that. But people can also take time out to do research and have NIH funding for that and a stipend. You can take time out between your 3rd and 4th years and get a master's of science and clinical research, and that also is NIH funded and has a stipend. But are either of you doing a little dabble, a lot?
I can go briefly. I started a research project because I'm in Doctors of Tomorrow, which is an organization that does really good work for students in Detroit, brings them and starts to introduce them to the career of medicine. And through that, a physician here, Dr. Haggins, presented on inclusive mentorship. And after her talk, I kind of just talked to her and I was like, you're doing really cool work. Like, do you have any current projects that you're working on that you could use a medical student? And this was like middle of the M1 year. And she was like, oh, I'm kind of busy. And I was like, okay, I'll email you. And so I did that. And, now we're working on a really cool project looking at persistence for medical students underrepresented in medicine, and first-generation college students, factors of persistence along the pre-medical pathway. And so we're like pretty deep in that project, and it's one that I don't know will necessarily apply to my path of excellence. I'm sure it could because they're so flexible, or my branch, but it's a project that makes me feel good, and fell into my lap when I just kind of said, hey, I'm interested in this and you're really cool. And I think that that's what I would want to convey, is that research is abundant here. I think most of my classmates are involved or something, or going to get involved in something. There's Surgery Olympics that gets you involved in research if you're thinking about it. There's so many different programs, but then there's also the individual just connection that can land you into research positions. So it's definitely a university that appreciates research, and I think all the different types of research, not just like bench work research or just clinical research. So that's what I wanted to say, but I'm still very early in my research.
Carol, if I may, one of the research questions came from one of our students who's applying MD PhD. So I don't know if she was a little bit interested in whether or not the MD PhD interviews are going to look the same and all be virtual, and how that will be, since they generally have a different flavor than the traditional MD interviews. So maybe you could talk about that.
So my office is not the MSTP admissions office. So what you'll want to do is email me and I'll let you know. I'll put you in touch with Justine Hine, who's the MSTP admissions director. I think they're going virtual as well, but I just haven't heard the last word from them. But you definitely do our interview as part of their interview. So I believe they're going to do a Thursday, which they've always done for the PhD side. And then we do our interviews on Friday. So I think they're going virtual as well. And, I'm 99% sure, but I just didn't hear the last word from them on that. So, and I think there was a mention about paths of excellence, which Marquis mentioned. There's 8 paths of excellence. You don't have to join a path. You can also join a path in your M1 year in the winter after you learn about all 8 of them, and then you can drop out. Like it's not on your transcript that you started this and then dropped it. It's just trying to open up more avenues for, say entrepreneurship, and have ties through the business school, or innovation with engineering or public policy, global health and disparities. And maybe there's ties there through the School of Public Health, quality improvement and systems. Oh my gosh, you guys, what are the other 8? I don't know even, but did any of you all do, Manka or Du Young, you didn't talk about your research either, but did you guys do paths of excellence at all, or?
So I am technically in the ethics path of excellence. And I just found it to be the most interesting. I had no ethical background before this. I think everyone chooses a path for a different reason. I personally have not done my project yet, just because there were other more interesting projects for me. I'm hoping to get something done before I graduate, but like Carol said, it's completely optional. I could drop out at any point. That being said, I feel like research opportunities are limitless here. It's almost a little overwhelming that I get so many emails about research opportunities. And so like after even like the first month of med school, I realized, you know what, I'm just gonna like take a step back, and I'm just gonna email people who I'm like really interested in. And so like that's how I found my like projects over the years. You can choose to do them or not, honestly. But they're there if you want it, and they're plentiful.
Manka, did you do a path of excellence, or were you intrigued by any of them?
I'm not currently in a path of excellence. I kind of decided pretty later on what I was interested in with respect to the paths. There are a couple of different paths that you can join in your M3 year if you can't make a decision in the M1 year, and paths are not required. So for me, one of the paths that I'm interested in potentially joining my M3 year is the QI path of excellence, something I'm more interested in towards like as I've gone through medical school. So
Yeah, what have you been involved in, just even extracurricular? Is there like one thing that you love that you're doing?
In terms of kind of more extracurriculars, I was involved with the Black Medical Association here at Michigan. And so my role last year on the executive board, I was one of the Black History Month coordinators, also served as the White Coats for Black Lives coordinator as well. And so last February, we kind of just got together as an organization to create a number of different events during the Black History Month. So we had a panel that we organized with some of the faculty. We also had a couple of random things that we did, like movie nights, and then we also did trivia on the Instagram as well. So I think there's an opportunity to create things that you're interested here in Michigan. And so, yeah, that's kind of one example of extracurriculars.
And the Insta was really good, Black History Month. So I think our Instagram is kind of fun, but you know, it's med students taking over and doing fun things. But I do see a good question for you all, you Maryland students. Haley asks, she's curious what experiences each of you had at UMD that you feel best prepared you for applying to and attending the university. I don't know, what do you think? Do you think it's still along the lines of follow your passions? Is the workload, were you prepared for the workload? Can anything prepare you for the workload in medical school? I don't think so, but that's.
Just before you start to answer that I saw that pop up too, and somebody a little bit earlier on had said similarly, maybe if you could talk a little bit about what you specifically did, you know, to get clinical experience or to get service related experiences while you were at Maryland that you felt like really helped you to define your interest in medicine. So maybe lump all of that together.
Who wants to take it?
I can talk a little about the clinical experience that I had, because this is kind of really what even shot me in the direction of committing to medicine. Because I feel like I don't know, I definitely had a moment where it's like, you know, you might think about medicine, but at some point you have to commit to that's the path for you. And I worked at the Pregnancy Aid Center in Greenbelt, which is super close to the College Park campus. And I worked there for 3 out of my 4 years of college. And I think it was not only being in a clinic, but being in a clinic serving underserved women, which is, women's health is very near and dear to me. I was a TA for psychology of women and things like it's just very important topic to me in general, but then to see that through the lens of medicine was really cool. And I did shadow through that clinic a few times, but mainly it was just being there and being a part of the team. Kind of like how Zoe was saying that her experience being on the lacrosse team or being at Maryland, that kind of team mentality. I think any experience in undergrad where you're a part of a team working towards a common goal, contributing from your strengths to just make a final product that's awesome. That to me, I feel like that's what prepared me for medicine. I was on a full competitive dance team for 4 years. That experience, working with other college students and trying to motivate them and having a common goal, that contributed to my application and how I could talk about my final choice to commit to medicine. Yeah.
Zoe, you and I never even met until after you graduated. And then we met all the time, it seems like. But
Yeah.
I mean, so you did indicate before that you were on this sort of different path when you were an undergraduate, but then you went on and did Teach for America, and so maybe you could talk a little bit about how you put it all together, because it was, it was pretty unique, I think.
Yeah, I definitely was trying to convey that everyone on this call is, miles ahead of where I was in undergrad, because I didn't meet Wendy until I had graduated, which I regret. Definitely take advantage of Wendy while you can and get to know her, because she's awesome as a person and advisor. But yeah, like Wendy said, after I graduated, I was really excited to get to teach high school bio in Baltimore with Teach for America. and coach lacrosse and stay involved in the things like Carol was saying, just like kind of do the things that I loved. And medicine, kind of like Marquis was saying, had always been in the back of my mind. And then, you know, that first year teaching in Baltimore, I decided like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to, you know, make an impact, and what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think once I just committed to that, I kind of made that decision. There's just a whole, you know, kind of series of dominoes that comes one after another. You know, you sign up for an MCAT and you start to look at schools and you start to think about, you know, what fits with what I'm passionate about and what I have done and what I haven't done. You know, I think it's an important process. And Wendy, you helped me with this, just being honest with yourself and reflecting on, you know, not judging yourself on what you have or haven't done, but being honest with yourself about, you know, I did very little research in undergrad. And so, well, I did no research in undergrad, confession. And so, you know, just being honest with myself and with Wendy about there are certain schools that probably aren't going to be a good fit for me. They're not only are they not going to, you know, be excited about my application, but if research is something that's super, super essential to their applicants, maybe that's not a place that I'm going to love either. And kind of just recognizing that this process, you know, is about reflection and is about kind of honesty, but being confident that what you have done is enough. And if you've been, like I keep repeating and what Carol said, if you are a good person and you have been following your passions and you're excellent at what you do, there is a place for you.
There was another question about health disparities and addressing them in the community in Ann Arbor, but maybe also if you look outside of Ann Arbor, do you have any international opportunities too?
I think Manka was going to talk about something, but I don't know what it was about the Maryland stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of echo the question about kind of letting your passions lead your application. When I was in undergrad, most of my clinical experience came through an internship that I had in Children's National Medical Center in DC. I was doing clinical research there in their emergency department. And I think what that internship did for me, it kind of helped acclimate me to the clinical environment. And so not only was I working in a team directly in the clinical setting, but I was kind of able to see what a future in medicine would look like for me. And so just seeing kind of what all the different doctors were doing there helped make it seem like medicine was more of a reality for me. But I think the experiences that I had at Maryland that weren't necessarily related to medicine also kind of made it kind of helped reinforce for me that medicine might be a way that I could help tie all these passions together. And so I did a lot of work with kind of elementary school students, tutoring after school. I worked with women who were escaping domestic violence in shelters. I also did a couple of different works with like student groups that were interested in the African diaspora. And so I think all those experiences kind of like brought together the groups that I was interested in and kind of the ways that I wanted to impact through medicine. And so I think it's really important that when you're applying to medical school, there are a lot of checklists that you see from different places. You know, even the medical, like and I'm blanking here, Wendy's office, I forget, HPAO office has like a couple of classes that you should take and things like that. But I think that there is no perfect application that you have when you're applying to medical school. And the story that you tell is more compelling than the kind of experiences that you put together just to click off a checkbox, because you can turn anything that you do into a reason for why medicine. So I really encourage people to kind of think about what your passions are and then how those passions kind of lead you towards medicine, and not necessarily how medicine leads you towards those passions.
I think that's great. I think too, that is, if it all fits together in your life, it can be reflected on application. We can see that when you're talking about those passions in an essay, it is reflected back into how you had your lived experiences and how others talk about you in a letter of recommendation. So I do think it can all come together. If you are really genuine and authentically you on your application and not thinking too much about what does Carol want to see on this application. So The sidebar I'm just going to say, because I know we're running over, is just that with health disparities or with international work, you are choosing amongst many opportunities here at Michigan. And if you have a focus on that, you have opportunities. You can choose to do your clinical rotations in spots that aren't just in Ann Arbor. And you can choose a different path amongst your, say, path of excellence in the global health and disparities. But I would say, I think it will be challenging this year internationally, right? Because of the pandemic. So I cannot say for you, well, you guys are applying and so it would be later, but I can't even say for our med students, nor can anybody on campus at Michigan right now, what international experience can I have in the year 2020, 2021, right? Because of the pandemic. So it will be interesting to see in the next year. And then as things get back ramping up, hopefully we'll have wonderful scientists figure out a vaccine for us, right? Go science. And my last word is just that it's a marathon. I was just talking with someone, we rarely go off the wait list, and I got to call someone today and offer them a spot into Michigan off the wait list. And they were so excited. And they said they started this journey last June. And wow, think about that. That's a marathon, right? So you all, if you're embarking on this year, you have to set your mind for a marathon and just, again, stay in your lane, and please just put your blinders on to the pre-med chatter. Reach out to people like myself or our students here at Michigan, and if they shared their email address, and reach out, and to your advisors, and reach out to people who are knowledgeable about the process. And I wish you well.
Thank you all so much for joining us. So great to see my Terps. I see you, some of you represented Michigan, some of you represented Maryland, some of you represented, I don't know what you got going on there, Zoe. But
This is a Michigan shirt.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you.
And I have Terp shorts on, so I got both.
All right. It was good to see you all. Everybody be well. I'm going to share the recording on our YouTube channel, and I can make the chat available too. So everybody.
Thanks for inviting us, Wendy.
Thank you for being here. Everybody be well. Thanks so much.
Take good care.
Take care.